Welcome to Skinner and Chalmers' Weekly Roast. Today, fire, Duff, and the Werewolf Warning. A different kind of neighborhood get-together.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Skinner and Chalmers Weekly Roast. I am Gary Chalmers, superintendent, amateur meteorologist, enthusiastic geologist, and, as of this past Saturday, a man who has personally witnessed his kitchen become a temporary portal to the sun again.
And I am Seymour Skinner, principal of Memfield High, proud husband, passionate home chef, and, as of this past Saturday, a man who has unlocked the true potential of pizza.
You set the kitchen on fire, Seymour.
I set the idea of pizza on fire, Gary. Philosophically speaking, I elevated it.
The fire brigade disagreed. Philosophically speaking.
Captain Hendricks always was more of a pragmatist.
He has our address saved under priority recurring. He told me that himself. He showed me the screen, Seymour. It just says, Skinner residents, do not reassign.
That's actually quite touching. We're regulars. Like at a restaurant, but the restaurant is our home and the menu is catastrophe.
Yes, lovely. Anyway, welcome everyone. Today we are recounting Saturday's pizza adventure, which began with ambition, involved somewhere between 3 and 5 separate disasters depending on how you count the cheese incident, and ended somehow beautifully, at the campfire in the garden, with our friends.
And a werewolf warning.
Yes, and a werewolf warning. We'll get to that.
We absolutely will get to that. It is critical information, Gary. The people need to know.
The people will survive not knowing for 20 more minutes, Seymour. Let's start at the beginning.
Right, the beginning. Okay, so, Thursday, 2 days before the big event, I'm sitting at the kitchen table, it's maybe 9 in the evening. Cosmo is rolling around on the floor doing that thing where he bounces off the refrigerator.
He does that every night now. I've accepted it.
And I'm reading this article, a beautiful article, Gary, written by this Italian chef, a Signor Benedetto something or other, and he is talking about the philosophy of pizza dough. And I mean philosophy. The man uses the word transcendence 3 times in the first paragraph.
So naturally you felt a kinship.
Immediate kinship. Spiritual bond even. And he says, and I will quote this as precisely as I remember, he says, the dough does not belong to you. You belong to the dough. Time is not your ingredient. Time is your collaborator.
That's actually not terrible advice.
It's magnificent advice. And it sent me into a 2-hour spiral of dough research, Gary. Did you know that a proper slow fermented pizza duff needs anywhere between 24 and 72 hours? That the yeast is doing work in that time. Invisible, patient, beautiful work.
I was asleep during the 2-hour spiral, but yes, I read your notes. You left them on the bathroom mirror.
For visibility.
In red marker.
For urgency.
The notes just said, time is the collaborator, in large letters, and then underneath, start dough Friday morning, do not rush.
Precise. Actionable. Motivational.
It was 6 in the morning when I saw them, Seymour. I nearly had a heart attack.
The heart was startled into wakefulness. That's practically the same as a morning jog.
So anyways, Friday morning, Seymour makes the dough.
And it went beautifully, I want to say that. The dough, the initial phase, flawless. We're talking flour, water, yeast, a pinch of salt, a drizzle of olive oil, the good olive oil, the one Echo brought us from that little market in Memetopia last autumn.
The Valdemorian Reserve. Yes, it's very good oil, and I must say the dough was indeed to perfection. You did a great job there.
Oh, thanks, honey. And I mixed it all together by hand, because the article said machines have no soul, and I needed it for a full 10 minutes, and then I put it in the bowl. Covered it with a damp cloth, and I said to it out loud.
So, listeners, he talked to the dough.
I communicated with the dough, Gary. There is a difference. I said, you have until tomorrow afternoon. Use the time well, and then I put it in the fridge.
And then he stood at the fridge for about 45 seconds just looking at it through the door.
I was monitoring the initial conditions.
You were having a moment with fermented flour.
It was a tender moment, yes. I won't apologize for that.
So the dough is resting. Saturday morning arrives. We've already messaged everyone. Sonic, Shadow, UG, Chief, York, Anna, Echo, the whole brigade, told them to come by around 4 in the afternoon, which gave us the whole morning and early afternoon to sort out ingredients.
The shopping trip. Gary, tell them about the shopping trip, because I think you actually enjoyed it.
I did not enjoy it, other than our shopping trips into Modachi life. These are great.
That's the most enthusiasm I've heard from you in a week.
Yeah, so we went to Bellini's, the good shop on Crumblewick Lane, and yes, it was a pleasant morning. The sun was already doing something promising, and I want to note for our listeners, it is March, everyone. Proper early March sunlight, low angle, golden, a little thin but full of intention. The barometric pressure was also excellent that morning. I checked it twice.
He checked it twice.
718 millibars, stable high-pressure system sitting right over Memfield. That's a good day, friends. Meteorologically speaking, Saturday was a gift.
See, this is why I love you. Anyone else would have said, was sunny. You gave us the millibars.
The millibars matter. See more.
The millibars always matter. Anyway, Bellini's, beautiful shop. We got a basket each, which immediately becomes a problem because Gary's basket becomes the sensible basket, and my basket becomes the adventure basket.
His basket had at one point 6 different types of cheese.
We were making pizza for 10 people, Gary.
3 of those cheeses were varieties of the same base cheese. Seymour, smoked provolone and extra smoked provolone are not functionally different enough to justify.
The smoke levels are categorically distinct, Gary. If there is anyone out there that is expert on smoke levels, it's me. And anyone who has eaten a proper pizza knows that smoke depth is a dimension of flavor, not merely a.
He also had cheese rolls in there.
Obviously, never forget to bring a good cheese roll to a get-together.
4 cheese rolls, individual ones, just sitting in the basket surrounded by pizza cheese.
Pre-shopping snacks are a legitimate category of grocery.
You ate 2 of them before we reached the vegetable aisle.
I was fueling the creative process.
Right, so vegetables. We got tomatoes, of course. Beautiful San Marzano types. Bellini's had them fresh, proper deep red, and the plan was to make a simple crushed sauce, nothing fancy, olive oil, garlic, salt, a little basil.
I wanted to add a secret ingredient.
He always wants to add a secret ingredient.
And I always have excellent reasons.
The secret ingredient this time was
a small spoonful of yip, whoop, whoop rosé, just for brightness, just for a whisper of acidity.
And I will admit, the sauce was actually very good.
See.
Don't make it weird, Seymour.
I'm celebrating Gary. Write that down, listeners. Gary Chalmers, superintendent, geologist, meteorologist, Memefield's most distinguished man of reason, has admitted that wine and tomato sauce is correct.
I admitted it was good. I didn't write a thesis about it.
Same thing. Anyway, we also got the vegan substitutes because Chief doesn't eat meat, which we always respect.
We got a very good plant-based salami. The Verduro brand, which I know Shia Fox has mentioned on the community board as well.
Shout out to Shia Fox, by the way. Solid pizza opinions from that guy.
And a plant-based chicken strip that honestly I was skeptical about, but we marinated it in a little lemon and herb, and it was genuinely fine.
More than fine. Chief had 3 slices with it.
He did. We also got fresh mozzarella, the gorgonzola for Yugi, because Yugi has very specific cheese opinions.
Yugi takes his gorgonzola extremely seriously. I respect that. A man who knows what he wants from cheese is a man who knows himself.
Rucola for the finishing topping, a jar of artichoke hearts, some thinly sliced red onion, and then Seymour disappeared into the condiment aisle for 11 minutes.
I was exploring.
I found him reading the label on a jar of something called Vesuvian chili spread with the expression of a man who had discovered scripture.
The label said it was inspired by the volcanic soils of Campania. Gary, it has terroir! That's a concept that applies to chili now.
We bought the chili spread, but I don't like it too spicy.
We absolutely bought the chili spread. It went on Shadow's pizza later on, and Shadow said, and I quote, "This is acceptable," which from Shadow is basically a Michelin star.
That's actually true. Shadow is not effusive.
Shadow once told me a sunset was within expected parameters. The man operates on a different compliment scale.
Almost like German compliments. It's not bad, actually means it's the best thing ever there. But yes, so we get home. It's around 1 in the afternoon. We unload everything. I start prepping the sauce, crushing the tomatoes by hand, building the base, and Seymour retrieves the dough from the fridge.
The dough, Gary. The dough. Listeners, I want to paint you a picture. I open that fridge, I pull out the bowl, I lift the cloth, and this dough had doubled in size. Smooth, airy. It smelled of yeast and possibility. I nearly cried.
He did not nearly cry. He said, "There it is," very quietly, like he was greeting an old friend.
That is emotionally equivalent to nearly crying, and you know it.
Fair enough.
So I portion it out. We're making 6 pizzas. We figured we'd do 2 rounds in the oven, and I let the portions rest for another 30 minutes covered, just to relax the gluten so it stretches properly. Because the article, Gary, the article said that is critical.
He said this to the dough portions individually. By the way, each one got a little pep talk.
Motivation is not size dependent, Gary.
One of them he called Little Champion.
It was the smallest one. It needed encouragement.
Meanwhile, I am building the sauce, which is a meditative process genuinely. I enjoy making tomato sauce. There's a certain, I don't know, geological patience to it, actually. You're working with layers, building depth slowly.
See, now who's being poetic?
I'm being accurate. Geology is essentially just cooking on a planetary timescale.
Gary, that's the most beautiful thing you've ever said.
Don't push it. Anyway, sauce is coming together, dough is resting, it's about 2 o'clock, the sun is pouring through the kitchen window. Old Bartholomew is outside in the garden doing something to the herb beds. He'd been trimming the basil all morning in the greenhouse with what I can only describe as surgical precision.
Bartholomew takes the herbs extremely seriously. He has 280 years of gardening experience, and every spring it's like he reconnects with something ancient in himself. It's actually quite moving.
He also said good morrow to the basil twice.
He's going through his inner change, Gary. Let him have the basil greeting.
Oh, I let him have it. I waved at him through the window. He waved back with a pair of pruning shears, dignified.
The Roombas were also doing their Saturday run, I should mention. All 20 of them, coordinated. Gary finds it unsettling.
It is mildly unsettling when all 20 of them align in the hallway simultaneously and then disperse like a murmuration of small disc-shaped birds.
It's beautiful. It's a choreography.
It is a lot of vacuuming happening at the same time in a medium-sized house.
Right. So, 2:30. Duff is ready. Sauce is ready. Toppings all prepped and laid out on the counter. We did it properly, Gary, you have to admit. It looked like a proper pizzeria mise in place.
It looked very good, yes. Everything in little bowls. Very organized. I was proud of us for about 20 minutes.
20 minutes? What happened at 20 minutes?
You preheated the oven. Listeners, you know what that means.
I preheated the oven, as instructed by the article. The article, Gary, and I want to be very clear because I'm sure our listeners are wondering. The article said, and this is real, this is legitimate Italian pizza methodology.
I believe you. Continue.
The article said that professional wood-fired pizza ovens reach temperatures of 450 to 500 degrees Celsius, and that to approximate this at home, you should heat your oven to its absolute maximum temperature. Put your pizza stone or heavy baking tray in there to preheat for at least 25 minutes, and then cook your pizza for a very short time, like 5, maybe 6 minutes, so that it gets that proper charred base and molten top without drying out.
This is, in principle, correct advice.
In principle, in beautiful, logical principle.
The issue was?
The issue was that our oven's maximum is 250 degrees Celsius, and I thought, well, the article said maximum.
Say more. You didn't.
I may have also turned on the self-cleaning option where the oven goes around 450 degrees Celsius.
Say more. You did not.
It seemed multiplicative.
It was not multiplicative. It was chaotic. It was thermodynamically aggressive and, in retrospect, entirely on brand.
In my defense, the first pizza went in beautifully. It looked magnificent going in, Gary. Perfectly shaped, beautiful sauce distribution, lovely little islands of mozzarella.
And 4 minutes later, it was a disc of carbon.
It was very thoroughly cooked, to put it that way.
It was beyond cooked. It had passed through cooked, moved through incinerated, and arrived at something closer to archaeology.
The cheese had merged with the tray.
The cheese had fused with the tray, yes. And then the tray decided it was also very hot, and the little bit of dripped sauce at the edge of the tray began to smoke. And then
there was a small fire, just a mild one, nothing to worry about.
The kitchen was on fire! Say more! The tray came out of the oven, and the drips on the bottom of the oven were actively burning. and then you tried to fan it with the article.
I thought. Movement would help.
Movement made it worse. You introduced oxygen to an oil fire, say more.
In retrospect, yes, that was a misstep.
I grabbed the fire blanket, which I will say, thank the stars we have a fire blanket, and I handled it, but then the smoke alarm was going off, and Cumulus, our pet cloud, started raining indoors in sympathy, which was actually somewhat helpful, but also meant the kitchen floor was wet.
Cumulus has very good instincts.
Cumulus soaked my left shoe. I hate wet socks. But yes, the instincts were sound. And then, the doorbell.
Captain Hendricks.
Captain Hendricks. And two of his colleagues, they'd picked up the smoke alarm signal, apparently. 3 firefighters in our kitchen at 2:45 on a Saturday afternoon looking at a carbonized pizza tray, a wet floor, a cloud that was still lightly drizzling, and one very calm skeleton watching from the garden window.
Bartholomew waved at them with the pruning shears again.
He did, he said from outside, I do hope no one is gravely injured, gentlemen. Very polite.
He has beautiful manners.
Captain Hendricks just said, morning, Bartholomew, like this was a completely normal interaction, which, to be fair, for this address it is.
And this is where I want to say, I had the yip, whoop, whoop ready.
He did. I don't know when he prepared for this contingency, but he had a very good bottle of yip, whoop, whoop Amber Reserve sitting on the counter.
A 2021 one. Excellent year from the Memfield Valley. Warm summer, good mineral structure.
You sound like me with the barometric pressure.
I've absorbed your influence, Gary. Anyway, I gave it to Captain Hendricks as a thank you, because these men come to our house so often that the least we can do is make sure they leave with something nice. And Captain Hendricks, and I love him for this, he looked at the bottle, looked at me, looked at the carbonized tray, and said, Seymour, one day I am going to retire and it will be because of this address. And then he smiled.
He did smile, which is rare for Captain Hendricks. He's more of a shadow, level compliment person.
He really is. So, fire brigade departs, Cumulus slowly stops drizzling, I open the window to clear the smoke, and Gary looks at me.
I looked at him.
And what did you say, Gary?
I said, right, let's try again. Lower the temperature and watch it this time.
Not even a lecture?
Seymour, I have been married to you for a significant number of years. The lecture stopped working around fire incident 47. Now I just redirect.
Efficient, loving, practical. That's my husband, everyone.
So, we recalibrate. I set the oven to 220 degrees. Just the bottom heat. The pizza stone goes back in, on a clean tray, not the one that become one with the atoms from the cheese. And we restart the process.
And by now it's about 3:15, and I can see through the front window that Sonic is already at the gate.
Sonic is always early.
Sonic is constitutionally incapable of being anything other than early.
He had also apparently already done a full lap of the Memfield Outer Ring Road since breakfast. He had too much energy. He needed pizza.
He rang the bell and I just shouted through the window, Sonic, come in. Kitchen situation is resolved. Wash your hands.
And he shouted back, did you burn something again? Before he'd even opened the gate.
The neighborhood knows Gary. It's a community awareness at this point.
And then about 20 minutes later, Yuji arrived with Shadow, which is an interesting pair, those two.
They'd apparently walked over together from the park. Shadow had been doing his brooding in the park thing.
His what thing?
You know? Shadow's thing where he stands near water and looks contemplative. He does it every Saturday morning.
That's just called standing near water, Seymour.
Not when Shadow does it. When Shadow does it, it has gravitas.
Fair. And Yuji brought a bottle of another alcohol-free yip, whoop, rosé, and immediately asked about the Gorgonzola, which told me his priorities were in the right place.
A man of focus. And then York arrived, and York, bless York, I love York, Zach, so Zach, arrived with what he described as little something from my personal investigations, which turned out to be a bag of truffle oil and fresh thyme.
Which was actually excellent, very thoughtful.
Zach has very good instincts about things, both in investigation and in topping selection. He said he'd been meaning to bring truffle oil over for months, but kept getting sidetracked by a case. Whether that's a real case or he just forgot, we'll never know. That's the Zach of it.
Anna and Echo arrived together as they usually do when they visit from Memetopia.
Always together, always in that way where you get the sense they've already had 3 conversations about today before today began.
Anna brought fresh labneh and said it would go beautifully as a white pizza base, which was correct. Echo brought, and this was genuinely charming, a small projection of the Memetopian evening skyline, which she set up in the garden later, just this soft ambient glow of purples and golds against the fence. Very pretty.
I almost cried at that one. Actually cried.
You did actually cry, a little, at the skyline projection.
It was beautiful, Gary, and it was March and the real sky was turning pink and the projection was purple and it was just, well, it was a moment.
It was a very nice moment. I'll allow it.
And Chief came last because Chief is always exactly on time and no earlier.
Chief has military punctuality. He arrived at 4 on the dot, greeted everyone, surveyed the kitchen briefly.
He looked at the faint scorch marks on the ceiling for about 4 seconds and then just looked at me.
And you said?
I said, "It's been addressed." And Chief nodded and said, "Good." And that was the entire conversation.
Which is essentially how Chief processes most of Skinner's disasters. Triage, confirm resolution, move on.
A very efficient man. I admire him tremendously.
So now it's 4:15, kitchen is full of friends, music is on. Sonic had taken charge of the playlist, which meant it was upbeat, but somehow still managed to include 2 unexpectedly melancholic tracks that he claimed were for balance.
Sonic has hidden depth.
Sonic has hidden playlists, at least, and we essentially just divided the labor beautifully. Anna took over one of the white pizzas with her labneh base. Echo was doing something extraordinary with the artichoke hearts and red onion. York was doing the truffle oil and thyme one with a little gorgonzola.
And UG looked at York's gorgonzola choice and gave a very measured nod of approval.
That meant a lot to York. Zach, you could tell.
Shadow assembled his own pizza in total silence and complete precision. Every ingredient placed with intention. It was almost meditative.
It was exactly meditative. He also added the Vesuvian chili spread, as mentioned, and when I asked him if it was good, he said, within expected parameters, without looking up.
Michelin star? I stand by it.
Chief did the plant-based chicken pizza with lemon herb marinade, and he was very methodical about the topping distribution. Said something about Venlo distribution, which I think started as a structural observation and ended as a pizza principle.
Chief applies engineering logic to everything and somehow it always works.
It was an excellent pizza.
Meanwhile, and this is my favorite part of the afternoon, Sonic and I were racing through the dough shaping, which is something you should not race through, technically.
Please explain to the listeners what happened.
Sonic was very enthusiastic about the tossing, the pizza dough tossing. He'd seen it done and wanted to try, and I, being a supportive host and a man of chaos, said yes, absolutely, let's do it.
The pizza ended up on the ceiling fan.
Briefly.
And then on Yuji's head.
To Yuji's enormous credit, he just reached up, removed the dough from his hair with great dignity, placed it on the counter, and said, "We don't speak of this." And we honored that. The pizza was still good, incidentally. Resilient dough. And then the actual baking, which, and I want to give Seymour genuine credit here, the second round was perfect. The second round.
220 degrees. Pizza stone properly preheated. Each pizza in for 7 to 8 minutes. Bases came out with beautiful color, golden brown, slight char at the edges. The mozzarella was bubbling but not burned. The rucola went on at the end fresh, the whole thing.
I want to say, Gary, and this is genuine, standing at that oven the second time, watching those pizzas come out right, one after another, friends in the kitchen and garden, the smell of tomato and basil and slightly toasted crust filling the house. I was very happy.
Yes, it was a good afternoon and evening.
Really good.
Genuinely. The sun had moved into that late golden angle by 5:30. The azimuth was really lovely, very warm, light quality.
And there he is.
I'm just noting the conditions, say more. Beautiful light quality, stable pressure holding, just the first proper warmth of March. Everyone sitting in the garden with pizza and wine.
Bartholomew had set up the garden beautifully, I should say. He'd brought out the long wooden table, lined it with little terracotta pots of early spring herbs, even found some small candles for later. He was very pleased with himself.
He said, and I quote, "Yet the vibes are unmatched, dudes," which is...
He's working on his modern slang.
He's getting closer. The sentiment was correct.
The vibes were unmatched, Bartholomew. Full credit.
And then the campfire, the last part.
The campfire!
Sonic had found the fire pit, because of course he immediately gravitated to anything involving controlled combustion.
He lit it in about 4 seconds, using methods I probably shouldn't ask about.
We don't ask. It was lit, it was lovely, and by 8 in the evening we were all sitting around it with blankets and the remains of the alcohol-free yip, whoop, whoop. We'd gone through 2 bottles of the rosé and 1 amber reserve by that point.
York was nursing a glass very thoughtfully, and I could tell he was going to say something investigative.
He asked Bartholomew about 18th century burial practices, which...
You know what? That's exactly the kind of question you ask a conscious skeleton at a campfire in March. It felt right.
Bartholomew was very happy to discuss it. At length, he has opinions about the Duchy of Württemberg's post-mortem customs that I don't think any living person on Earth has heard before.
And then Echo projected the Memetopian sky over the garden, and Chief was leaning back looking at it very quietly, and Anna and Echo were talking in the soft way they always do, and Yuji was talking to Shadow about. What were they talking about?
I believe it was the nature of strategy, games, battles, life choices. At a certain point, I heard the word hexagonal, and I stopped following.
Great campfire topic, honestly.
And then Seymour decided it was story time.
It was absolutely story time.
Seymour, the werewolf pizza story.
Right. So, I'd been thinking about this all week, actually. Gary will tell you I mentioned it twice at breakfast.
Tuesday, Thursday, and briefly on Friday in the context of garlic bread.
So everyone is sitting around the fire, and it's properly dark now, and the fire is doing that perfect low crackle, and I say, can I tell you all something important?
The group went quiet. Chief even turned his head.
And I said, it has come to my attention, through extensive research and one very concerning podcast episode I found at 3 in the morning, that if you eat a garlic pizza during lunch, you become a werewolf.
Right. Eating garlic pizza during lunch turns you into werewolf mode.
I want to pause here and explain the logic, because this is not arbitrary, Gary.
I know your logic. Walk the listeners through it.
The reasoning is garlic is classically associated with vampire lore, right? But the common understanding is garlic repels werewolves as well. However, and this is the key insight, that understanding is based on assumptions about werewolves consuming the garlic. What if the relationship is inversed? What if garlic, when consumed by a human at lunch specifically, because lunch is the liminal meal, it's between the solar peak and the descent.
The solar peak?
The noon hour, Gary, is when the sun is at its zenith, and therefore the lupine energies of the night are at their furthest suppression. But if you eat garlic precisely at lunch, you're essentially inverting the suppression, you're welcoming the night into the day.
There is no scientific basis for any of this.
It's narrative logic. It holds together in a story sense.
And what was the group's reaction?
Shadow looked at me very seriously and said, I have eaten garlic bread at 12:40, multiple times.
The group was very concerned about Shadow.
Very concerned. Anna asked him if he'd noticed any unexpected hair growth or sensitivity to moonlight, and Shadow just stared at her and said, that question doesn't deserve an answer, which is fair, but also suspicious.
Chief said, I've heard stranger things, which is doing a lot of heavy lifting in terms of ambiguity, Chief.
Sonic asked if being a hedgehog was a problem already.
And Bartholomew, and I want to give him full credit for this, Bartholomew said very gravely, in my time, the lunar cycles were taken most seriously. I cannot speak to the garlic pizza specifically, as we did not have pizza, but I would exercise caution.
A ringing endorsement from an 18th century skeleton. You cannot ask for more.
York wrote something down in his little notebook.
York was taking notes, Gary, on the werewolf pizza theory. That man never fully leaves investigation mode, and I treasure that about him.
And Yugi asked whether the werewolf transformation could be countered by correct dueling strategy, and honestly, we didn't have a satisfying answer for that.
We did not. That remains an open question for a future episode.
The evening wound down around 10. People slowly drifted home. Chief left with a characteristic nod and no further comment. Echo and Anna took the skyline projector back to Memetopia. Anna hugged us both, Echo gave a very warm wave and said she'd see us before summer. York stayed an extra 15 minutes and talked to Bartholomew about the 1792 ladder incident. So Bartholomew's death, for the listeners that missed his origin stories the last 2 weeks.
They really connected on that. York has a very good sense of how to ask questions that invite people to talk, even if the people are skeletons.
Bartholomew seemed glad to talk about it. He said he had never fully explained the circumstances of the fall. There was a poorly anchored rung, and York listened very carefully. It was a kind thing.
York is a very kind man underneath the investigation layers.
Sonic was last to leave because he'd gotten into a long conversation with Cumulus, our pet cloud, about precipitation theory, which I don't fully understand but apparently went very well.
Those two have an odd friendship. I support it entirely.
And then it was just us, and Bartholomew putting the garden to bed, and the Rubas doing their late-night cycle in the house, and the fire just dying down to embers.
And I had a slice of cold pizza at 11 p.m. sitting on the garden steps in Gary. It was honestly the best slice of the whole day.
Cold pizza at night is genuinely excellent. That's not controversial. That's just correct.
It is correct. You know what I love about it? Hot pizza is about the moment. Cold pizza the next day, or in this case, late at night, is about memory. It tastes of the whole afternoon. The dough resting, the shopping trip, the fire incident, the friends, the wonderful get-together.
The good millibars.
The beautiful millibars, Gary. Every single one of them.
And that is our little pizza episode, friends. Nothing real special, just daily life in Memfield, which is chaotic enough. Saturday the 8th, a perfect early March afternoon in Memfield, fire incident notwithstanding.
Lessons learned time is the collaborator. The dough knows. Don't run cleaning mode on ovens for making pizza. And if you ate garlic pizza at lunch any time in the past several years, please monitor yourself for signs.
You can find signs listed nowhere because this is not a real phenomenon.
Yet, Gary, yet.
Yet, forever.
As always, thank you to everyone in the community who makes Memifield what it is. So, Loomis, Rachrox, Vangoat, Purple, Tombury, ArticTiger, Luna, Tredos, Tethu, Bites, Magpie, 1862, Ladza, Deputies, Kids for Life, Bubble, Shia Fox, Trados, James, Slashed, and everyone listening tonight, wherever you are.
If you're eating pizza while listening, I hope it's a good one. If you're eating cold pizza, even better.
And if there's garlic on it and it's lunchtime, perhaps check the moon phase before you commit.
Good night, Memfield.
Good night, everyone. Until next time, have a nice week.
Enjoy the warmer March.